Did you know that science, modern science, in both game theory and biology, actually shows that kindness and forgiveness are not in fact weaknesses. They are actually a very, very strong survival strategy, it turns out. And this is why we can see that even animals can be kind to each other, and even across species we can see behavior of kindness. So while this also explains why the Christianity which is built on kindness and forgiveness, actually became a very, very powerful it created a very powerful civilization. But this science also explains and reveals a very deep flaw within Christianity also. So let me explain. So game theory. Veritasium made a very, very excellent video about this I'm going to talk about. I'm going to give you a link in the description you can follow if you want more detail about this. But I can give a little bit of a summary. Game theory is the idea that we use mathematics to model human behavior. So we can theorize about how cooperation should work. And with game theory, you can also use computer simulations to experiment with different life strategies and see, will it work to cooperate, will it work to betray, etc. And a very simple example of this, just to give you some kind of idea what I'm talking about. Maybe you've heard about the prisoner's dilemma. It's about two prisoners that get caught by the police. They made some crime together, and if they both don't talk, they both maybe get 1 year in prison. But if one of the prisoner betrays the other prisoner, say he was the one who was behind it all, then that prisoner will walk free, and the other one will get 10 years because he was implicated. But if they both tell on each other, then they both get 5 years each. So this is a kind of dilemma. Should you gamble on walking free and betray the other one, or should you? So mathematicians have theorized about this kind of problem for a long time. Of course, this is just a model. Maybe it doesn't correspond to reality. You also have to check, is the model actually... I mean, if for example, the prisoners are family, for example, it might change their behavior, etc. So you have to take these things with a grain of salt. But in the problem with the prisoner's dilemma is it's just like a one-off example of if you should trust the other person or not, or if you should. But in reality, you often build trust over time. Like you go to the same work, you work for the same people all the time, and such. So, and if countries are neighbors to each other, they build trust over time. Is that neighbor going to attack me or not, etc. So then there is another game called the war peace game that has a set of different rules. Like, two countries can choose to cooperate, and the rules are very simple. You just to model a basic behavior of cooperation and trust and such. And the rules is like, if they cooperate, then they both get 1 point each. And if one betrays the other and that's tried to cooperate, then the betraying nation gets 2 points. So you can essentially steal the profit for that round. But if both betray each other, then no one gets any points. So it's like very simple rules. And scientists, they try to figure out what's the best strategy for this. They wrote many different computer programs to try to have a competition about what strategy should be the winning strategy here. Like, and they tried to make up some mischievous, like Machiavellian strategy that always betrays the other one when the least expected, etc. And they also tried very benevolent, like Christian strategies, like always try to see good in the other person, always try to cooperate, never betray the other one. And then they had, but the interesting thing is that the winning strategy, they had like a competition, and the winning strategy in this competition is a very simple strategy actually. It's called tit for tat, and this winning strategy is simply, first assume that the other player is benevolent. So you start by cooperating, play the green card, which is in many cases the green card. So you start by cooperating, and as long as the other one cooperates, then you just keep cooperating. You get a 1 point per round, and that's that. But if the other one betrays you, then in the following round you betray them, but only for 1 round. And after 1 round, you try again to cooperate. And the interesting thing about this simple strategy is that it displays 2 very, very fundamental principles. First, it's kind, because it assumes the other player is also kind. It starts with good intention. It's kind. But also, when the other player betrays you, you betray them back 1 round, so it's provocable. It means it will revenge. It's essentially an eye for an eye, as in the Old Testament, basically. Like it will so it's provocable, but it also forgives. So like when you have punished the other player 1 round, and that player maybe didn't get anything, or then you start to cooperate again. So you forgive, and it turns out that these very, very simple rules, kindness, provokability, and forgiveness, were a winning concept in these simulations they made of this. So they kind of proved, in a sense, that kindness and forgiving are very strong life affirming strategies. And there was a 4th thing also. They played many strategies against each other, and they varied the game in a lot of interesting ways. So if you want more detail on this, you can go and see the full Veritasium video on this. I fully recommend it. It's a really, really good video, and I think everyone should see that one. But so the 4th thing was clarity also. Like, if a strategy was too obscure or strange, the other player couldn't really read you, then it also wasn't very successful, because it turns out, like, if you're gonna revenge or do something, if other people don't know you're gonna revenge, then it's kind of pointless, because then it will attack you anyway, or something like that. So you need to be clear also. The strategy, you needn't be too complicated, because then other strategies can't figure you out. So those were basically the 4 fundamental strategies for life, essentially. And they. So I think. But what does that mean for religion and our society today, etc.? I think for Christianity, it kind of gives Christianity some credibility, because it turns out that Christianity, I mean, the kindness and forgiveness in Christianity wasn't at all just weakness, like Nietzsche said, Christianity is just a slave morality. Actually, there's a huge point to the kindness and forgiveness of Christianity, so that's that. But it also reveals the other thing, like provokability. In the New Testament, Jesus Christ said, if someone slaps you on one cheek, then turn the other cheek. It's like Jesus Christ was radical in the sense that he even forgave his enemies. He and showed kindness to enemies, even as they were attacking him. So Jesus Christ lost that kind of provocability. So that's kind of the story. So Nietzsche wasn't all wrong. Christianity has some degree of slave morality in it, and yeah. So what can we do about? What's the conclusion here? I mean, why am I talking about this? One of the reasons is that in this channel and in this project I have here, one of the things is I actually working on trying to build a new interpretation of Christianity that has and it's my goal actually to fix this, to make a new interpretation of Christianity that has no more slave morality, that has more that solves this problem with Christianity. Because I think it's possible to have a religion that preaches kindness and forgiveness. I think Jesus Christ is a perfect symbol of kindness and forgiveness. We also have other symbols like Luffy the pirate. He's also very kind, for example. But Jesus Christ is the epitome of kindness and forgiveness. So I think, so I want to build from that, but kind of correct it. Of course, there's many reasons why I choose to do this over. Essentially, this is the reason why I choose to try to reform Christianity over like going back to paganism, because I know a lot of people in the nationalist community, they want to go back to paganism, and I think that's also pretty interesting choice. But I think, for me at least, the focus on kindness and forgiveness is what for me makes Christianity something worth building on. And I think when it comes to slave morality in Christianity, I think I have a theory of my own. I think that I will talk about these things later in other videos, but I can give you a kind of preview what I think Christianity was created actually mostly by Paul the apostle. I think the Church of Jerusalem maybe didn't even exist. I think it was all created as a kind of, like, if we can imagine Christianity, like today we have 4chan and Reddit and stuff like that. Imagine if someone like thousands of years later read those messages, and I think in the diaspora of the Jews that scattered along the Mediterranean, I think there presented itself a unique opportunity to create myths by writing letters. I saw this miracle. I think that is how Christianity was created by Paul, as a way to give hope to people, by creating this Messiah that died but lived again. But then I think around 771 AD, around the destruction of the temple, when Titus invaded Jerusalem, I have a theory that I think actually the Romans understood what Christianity was. I think they had tortured Christians. I think they had even, we know they killed Paul. We know they had persecuted the Christians in Rome. So I think they had to kind of figure out that it was all just made up by Paul. And I think Titus Flavius, he wanted to marry a Jewish princess called Bernice. So I think Titus Flavius had a very personal interest in creating peace between Romans and Jews. And I think he saw the opportunity here to create a religion that could unify both Romans and Jews. So I think he co-opted Christianity. And I think a lot of things in the Bible, especially the Gospels I don't trust, to be honest. I think the Gospels are written by Romans. We can see a lot of Roman stylistic things in them, like Jesus creating wine from water. That's very similar to Dionysus, the wine god of Rome, that also created wine out of water. And there's a whole story there about. You can look into it. There's a book of there's a book called, I don't remember the Atwill. The book is called, at least, Caesar's Messiah. For those interested, you can look into that. That also has the connection, but the difference for me is I think Christianity was not all. It was not created from the beginning from Romans. I think it was co-opted by the Romans, and that is how I explain the slave morality of Christianity. Like Paul, like if you think of it, a lot of things Jesus says is straight up, could be interpreted as straight up Roman propaganda. When Jesus says, give unto God what belongs to God, and give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar. I mean, it's Jesus telling the Jews to pay tax, essentially, isn't it? It's Roman propaganda. It could at least be. I'm not sure. Of course, I don't know the answer. No one will ever know, probably. But this is my interpretation of Christianity. And under my interpretation of Christianity, that is atheistic in nature, that's the other thing. There's two ways I want to reform Christianity. First, I want to remove the slave morality from Christianity, and the second is I want to create an atheistic religion. Maybe as the world first. I don't know if it's ever been done, but the whole idea is that, like, what is religion? Religion is a story. It's a shared story that we have. But why does the story have to be magical? Why do we have to believe in magical gods? I think we can believe in the story about the story. Maybe it's just equally interesting what if Jesus was just an ordinary man? No God. What if Jesus was just like Jesus from Jerusalem? Maybe he wasn't even probably not from Nazareth, because that's probably Roman inventions. Maybe there was just some guy called Jesus. Maybe he started some small. I will talk more about these in other videos. I have a lot of things to say there, but what about if Paul just saw a guy die in horrible torture, and he, on the way to Mecca, Damascus, on the way to Damascus, he had a crisis of consciousness, and he suffered the memory of seeing this tortured man, and he wanted to somehow create hope. So he invented this story about Jesus being a god. He started to spread this story with his network of mail that he had. So that for me, that's the story of Christ. I mean, it's not Christ even. Christ is the symbol of kindness. That's like a superhero. But this was maybe there was a Jesus of Jerusalem that actually died for truth, because maybe he upset the temple in some way. And Paul had the consciousness and the idea to write about this and make Jesus eternalize him in a sense. And maybe after that, Paul also died, and then come Titus, the peacemaker. He started to insert Roman propaganda into the Gospels to try to create peace, and that is how we got all this story about Jesus and all the thing. But essentially, it's just a story about people that want to create hope, essentially, and peace. And that can be our story. That can be our mythos for our religion going forward. And so what we can do here is that we can say that maybe turning the other cheek was just Roman propaganda. So we can now purify Christianity from that, and we can just say Christianity stands for kindness and forgiveness. That science tells us are the real values. And we also add provokability. We return to paganism and an eye for an eye with provokability. So that is kind of, now I'm getting off track. There's a lot of, but I will in the future I will also put these ideas into print. I will write book text about these and stuff, so people can. Is there something more I want to tell? Because yeah, I was just overheard. I think there was Uberboy and some other like Nietzsche talking the other day about paganism, etc. And I like the idea with Nietzscheanism and like the ideas of Nietzsche with the will to power. You can think of a plant that grows in the ground. It's life affirming because it defies gravity. It has a will to power. It goes against gravity, and that's very beautiful and all. But if you look closely, what kind of what I want to say here is that if you look closely at the plant, it consists out of many cells, and the cells, they give nutrition to each other. So they have like the kind of will to give, but together they have the will to power. So that's how I picture why I think, well, essentially how this religion could form form a kind of basis for the new renaissance that I want to try to create. A reformed Christianity, essentially. I'm going to talk more about that in future episodes, but I think for now, just go and look at Veritasium's video about the war and peace game and such. That's something. And please comment down below if you have any thoughts about these ideas. Kindness, forgiveness, clearness, and provokability. That's the what science tells us that a life affirming religion should contain. So that's the project I'm working on. Thanks and bye bye.